Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Today is Tuesday, December 18, 2012. I'm speaking with Syed Badrul Ahsan of Dhaka. This interview is being conducted in Delhi. Mr. Hassan, what's your desh?
Well, I come from Bangladesh. I'm a citizen of Bangladesh.
And
Well, my home district used to be Greater Dhaka.
Okay.
But now it's part of Narayanganj.
Narayanganj. Where in Narayanganj?
It's a sub-district or upazila,
Yes.
as we call it in Bangla nowadays.
Yes.
It's Arai Hajar.
Arai Hajar. And where in Arai Hajar?
The village is Noagaon.
Go.
Noagaon.
Noagaon. Very nice. Now tell me a little bit about the village. Have you been to the village?
Oh yes. In fact, we go there every month. My siblings, their families, and I we go there once a month.
Okay.
See, and in our childhood, we used to go there. See, every time we came home for the holidays. I say home for the holidays because my father was posted in what used to be West Pakistan, in Quetta, Balochistan.
Okay.
So every 3 years he used to bring us to the village, and we spend a month there.
So let me then ask you, what's your name of your father and mother, and what was their professions?
My father's name is Syed Nazirul Haq.
Okay.
He died in 1992.
Okay.
And he was with the Geological Survey of Pakistan, but then he began his career with the Geological Survey of India in Kolkata. From 1942 till 13th August 1947.
13th, you see,
Yes.
we remember that day.
He was in Kolkata, and on the 13th in the morning he left. He opted for Pakistan, naturally, because he came from East Bengal. He had no choice. So and then he turned up in Quetta the next day. He was one of the four Bengali gentlemen who went from Kolkata to Quetta to be part of the Pakistan Geological Survey.
So you grew up partly in Quetta?
I finished my school in Quetta.
Oh, you finished in Quetta?
Right.
Okay. Now let me come back to the village. How is the village like? Can you tell us your village, your home? Was it a big building, small building, thatch building, mud building?
But it's a very middle class village. So now it has changed because people are getting a little more prosperous, say in recent times, because of this manpower export and some other vocations that people are going into business, for instance. But then it has been a very traditional. It is traditional village. It is still very traditional, and it's a very small village. And if you go there, when I go there, I feel that the first memories that I have of my village is when I was 2.5 years old, and I still feel it's the same village, the same pond, the same trees. See, well, the structure of the houses has changed. They used to be thatched houses, see, with thatched roofs. Nowadays we have buildings, see,
Concrete, big and
concrete. But in our particular case, we have decided to maintain a little of the old tradition. We have the walls made of bricks, but we have kept the roof as a kind of tin roof.
Tin roof, yeah, it's very common. Now, was there ponds and was there compounds? Were there trees in the village?
Yes, there absolutely. There were and there are lots of trees, and there's a huge pond which my great-grandfather built. So I'm told, say, when my grandfather got married, he brought his bride home, and she had to go to a neighbor's house for a bath. And my great-grandfather was not very pleased with the outcome, so he had this crop field, rice field and all. He had it converted into a pond.
Did you go to school there in your village, or you were in Quetta?
No, in Quetta.
But so all your brothers and sisters, how many brothers and sisters?
Well, we are 5 brothers and sisters, 4 brothers. I'm the eldest.
Okay.
After me there's a sister and then 3 more
all
brothers.
All of them studied in Quetta?
All of them, most of us studied in Quetta, but some of us, owing to reasons of politics, the 1971 Liberation War, some of them had to finish their school in Dhaka. I was the only one who finished his school in Quetta.
Now, was it a all-Muslim village or was it a mixed village? Do you remember?
Well, I am told that there used to be a good number of Muslims till the late 1940s and even till the early 1950s.
In your village?
Because in our village, see, I noticed that there is a very old temple. It's almost an ancient temple, but there are no more Hindus left. But the temple is still there. See, derelict, but then it's there.
Okay. So, but you mean, I suppose you meant you thought there were many Hindus?
There used to be Hindus.
Yeah, that's what
I'm sure they migrated.
Yeah. So you said, okay. Now, tell me about your life in Quetta.
Well, Quetta, you see, that was, I went, I think my parents gave me and my brothers and my sister the very best education. They took us to one of the best schools, the English medium missionary school.
Okay, missionary school.
Yes,
What's the name of the school?
It's a St. Francis Grammar School.
Okay.
It was run by Dutch missionaries.
Okay.
So nowadays, I'm told it's run by local Pakistani Christian missionaries.
Okay. And you studied up to?
I studied up to senior Cambridge, from nursery to senior Cambridge.
Okay. So then then what happened? How did you end up in Bangladesh then?
Oh, well, see, in December 1970, we had Pakistan's first general elections were held on, if you remember, on December 7, 1970. A few days before that, my father had got transferred to Dhaka.
Just few days before?
A few days before the election, and we were getting ready to come to Dhaka. Then the elections took place. Then somehow the transfer order was not being implemented by his superiors for some reason or the other. Meanwhile, the genocide of 25th March 1971 began, and a few days later the transfer order was cancelled.
Okay.
See, and my father had to approach his bosses again, his director general, and he told them that his father, my grandfather, he was all alone in the village, and he didn't know what was happening because we had no communication with occupied Bangladesh at that time. So somehow he got by the end of June, he had this transfer order returned to him. See, when the transfer order was restored to him. And so
this was 71 June?
71 June, you see. And
but we are talking about, but the war has already
started. See, because he got his transfer order in December 1970. Then, a few days after March 25, 1971, it was cancelled.
Okay.
By the end of June, it was restored.
Okay.
And on the 5th of July, and it's amazing, we still don't know how we made it. We were put on a flight we went from Quetta by train to Karachi and put on a PIF flight which was coming to Dhaka. And the flight was all full of Pakistani men, not a single woman was there. The only females were my mother and my sister. And the moment we got down at Dhaka airport, the old Tejgaon airport in Dhaka, it's no more an airport now. So we realized that these men with whom we were traveling were all Pakistani military officers. They all got down and they were being saluted by Pakistan army officers based in Dhaka. And then we realized that we had, so to say, traveled with the enemy.
Now tell me then a little bit about what was life like from March till July for you in Quetta?
Well, see, after the elections of from December to March, see, as far as I recall, Bengalis in Pakistan, in Quetta at least, in Balochistan, they're very much respected, and people looked upon us, and they even told us that your leader Sheikh Mujibur Rahman is going to be Prime Minister of Pakistan one of these days. After 25th March, their attitude completely changed, see, and they sort of publicly, not sort of, but publicly, they derided us as traitors to the cause of Pakistan, that we were agents of India, Hindu agents, we were Hindus, we were miscreants. And then, of course, as a young man at that time in school, I also had arguments with my classmates and all that. So these things went on.
But there was no direct violence?
No direct violence, but I remember my mother having good, feisty exchanges with her neighbors, and because her neighbors began to taunt her. Her neighbors were very friendly with her for all these years. They began to taunt her about the secessionist movement. My mother also hit back and all that kind of thing. So it was not very, between 25th March and July 3, that was the day we left Quetta, it was not a very pleasant experience.
So how did you live? Why was the departure from Quetta to Dhaka? What things you carried?
We carried our bare minimum clothes.
But you left your everything back there?
Yes. And
did you get anything back?
No, we didn't get anything back. And the biggest loss that I still feel to this day was my collection of books. Even at that age, I had a very good collection of about 500 books. I had left it with the Bengali family, asking them, my father had asked them to transfer them later to Bangladesh, if it were possible. But then somehow the family came back after 1974, that Bengali family, and they told us that the books had been stolen. So one really doesn't know.
So tell me then, as you land in Dhaka, what's the feeling like?
Well, it was a very sad feeling. I remember it was late in the evening, and it was raining. It was the monsoon season, 5th of July, 1971, and not a soul was there. Nobody to receive us. Only a friend of my uncle's. He had come to receive us, but he was not allowed to enter the airport building. He stood at the gate with an umbrella in the rain. And then
So he knew that you were coming?
Yeah, he knew.
You were able to communicate with him?
Yes, so we had written a letter to him.
Oh.
My father had written to him 3 weeks in advance.
So that communication was continuing?
That was there.
Okay.
So then we drove through the rain and the streets were empty. See, you could hardly see people there. And it was a ghost city. And the feeling was very bleak. In fact, we knew that things were going badly with all the Pakistani occupation there. But that it was this bad, we didn't know. From the airport, we went to an uncle's place, which was nearby, at a place called Green Road.
Okay.
And my uncle was there. He just had a little lamp on, and the rest of the family had gone to the village. And we were even more depressed. Why had they gone to the village? He said it's not safe because Pakistani soldiers and the local quislings said they're after all the women, and because the women are not safe, and the young men are not safe, we've sent them off to the village. And he said, I was waiting for you to come.
Okay.
And that's how
then what did you do?
So
what did your father do?
My father, he reported to the local office of the Geological Survey of Pakistan, East Pakistan branch at that time. So he worked there, and I didn't go to school anyway.
But you stayed in Dhaka?
We stayed in Dhaka and we traveled to the villages. It was also difficult to travel to the villages because there were checkpoints everywhere. See, on this side of the river Shital Lokha, on that side of the river Shital Lokha, Pakistani army officer constantly asked me.
They were army. They were checking. Yes,
they were checking, and I remember I was very rude with one officer because he tried to be friendly with me. He says, "Hey, kemon acho, bundu." He didn't say bundu, he said bundu. And I told him I don't know Urdu. In fact, I knew Urdu, but then that anger was there. So, and then we went to the village. When we went to the village, again, my cousins were not there. All of them had gone off to the Liberation War. They were part of the Mukti Bahini. So they all came back later. 3 of my relatives were picked up by the Pakistan army. Their bodies were never found. So,
what were their names?
Two of them were distant uncles, but the most prominent among them was Colonel Ziaur Rahman. Not the Ziaur Rahman, but this Ziaur Rahman.
He was in the army.
He was in the Army Medical Corps.
Oh.
And he was principal of Sylhet Medical College.
And
so he was picked up and he was never found again.
And the other 2 were uncles too.
Yes, they were picked up again. They were taken
because they were educated people.
They were educated people, and they were picked up because the army had got information that they had sent their sons off to the war.
Oh.
See, and they were taken to Dhaka cantonment, and nobody ever found them again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Now, then from that time onwards, what was life like in
71?
Village or in.
No, it was very depressing everywhere. See, and so one night when I was in the village with my father, we had gone to spend a night. My father and I with my grandfather. He was all alone, and that night, one of the bridges on the highway that got blown up. We heard the sound, of the explosion. And the next morning, Pakistan Army turned up in full gear, but then the bridge had already gone. Later on, we learned that 2 of my cousins, they had gone up and blown up the bridge.
Now, let me go back to the village. What's the name of the village again?
Noagaon.
Noagaon. Now, how many generations do you think your family lived there?
Oh, my family has been there for, I think, at least 4, if not 5 generations.
4 or 5 generations.
Yes.
So this period from July onwards, you were split up between village and Dhaka.
Not exactly. Village, we went 3 or 4 times, but then mostly we were based in Dhaka. We found a residence in Dhaka. We stayed there.
And how was life like in Dhaka then?
Well, it was always in the grip, in the fear of curfews and blackouts. The Pakistanis used to impose curfews, and they would go on a door-to-door check of residences in particular areas. And they would go and see if the one point was if they could see any young man there. They wanted to find out what that young man was doing, whether, in other words, whether he was part of the Mukti Bahini or not.
Were you ever checked? Were you ever threatened?
We were checked.
Because you were a teenager, though.
Yes. So but then they also knew that these teenagers, I was 16 at the time, they knew that 17, 18 year old people, they're all going off to the war.
Yeah.
But then they came and checked and all that, and somehow my parents spoke Urdu,
Yeah.
and well, they went on.
Yeah. And so life went on as as abnormally normal as possible.
Well, we were all in internal exile at that time.
Yeah. Were any of your properties damaged or destroyed in 71?
No, property was not damaged.
Now, let me come back to this. What was your feeling like when December came?
Well,
We're in December now.
Yes, when December came, in fact, I remember distinctly, I wrote about it the other day in my newspaper. So on December 3rd, the Pakistan Air Force attacked Indian air bases, and of course we heard Mrs. Gandhi's statement, and that gave us a feel that victory was near. But then we had a feeling throughout 1971 that it would take us years to be free. See, we had this example of Vietnam in mind, and I also remember going through Anthony Mascarenhas's reports, see, where a Pakistani captain had told him in Kumila that we'll keep these Bengalis in slavery for 30 years. So that fear was there. But then from December 3 onwards, so we were very excited, and we heard news every other day of towns of Khulna falling, Jessore falling. So that was.
Did you believe them?
Yes. I believe the Pakistan radio, of course, was giving out wrong news. In fact, the other day I was reading an account in our newspaper of a gentleman from Calcutta. So he said that on the 14th of December, Pakistan radio was giving out the news that the Howrah Bridge had been destroyed, and he had a good laugh to himself. So we didn't buy the Pakistani news items at all. So, but we did believe it. And on the 14th of December, see, in the early stages of the war, the Pakistan Air Force had been completely destroyed in Bangladesh. See, and the Indian Air Force on the 14th of December, they dropped thousands of leaflets from General Manek Shaw, see, asking the Pakistani forces to surrender. And some of those leaflets fell right into our courtyard in Dhaka, and I picked them up. I had kept them, but then over the years, through floods and every flood waters, and they've gone missing. So that was when we knew. On the 16th of December, we heard at around 20 minutes past 4 in the afternoon, that the Pakistanis had surrendered. So I didn't go out at that time. My father wouldn't let me go. He said, "Don't go out today," because we heard these slogans of Joy Bangla all around.
You heard it?
Yes.
And how did you feel?
Oh yes. So we also screamed from in the house. So, and we turned on the radio. What used to be Radio Pakistan Dhaka, it became Shadin Bangla Betar Kendra. And the first.
It turned around.
Absolutely. See, and then the first program, the first thing that Dhaka radio, it called itself Dhaka Betar at that time. Say in those first few hours of freedom. So it was Nazrul's poem Aaj Srishti Shukerullah She. See, that is there. And then there came a beautiful song by one of our singers who was in Shadin Bangla Betar Kendra, Abdul Jabbar. See, he's Hajar Bochor Pore Abar Eshechi Phire Banglar Buke Achi Dariye. So these feelings are there. The next day on the 17th, my friends and I made some friends by that time. We went around touring Dhaka City, Dhaka University Hall, splinters and everything. And we went to what is today Bongo Bhavan, and we tried to enter this, and the policemen, the security men there, Indian security and Bangladesh security, and they said, "It's your house now." Then we went to the president's house, which later became the prime minister's house. And this president's house was the place where in 1971 General Yahya Khan, Sheikh Mujib and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, they had the negotiations. We went there with lots of Indian soldiers, exchanging greetings, fraternal greetings with us, with Bengalis. And I remember there's some curious incidents also. One Bengali gentleman, say from Dhaka, he was hugging a Sikh army officer, and he told him, "All Punjabis are bad." And the Sikh, he didn't know that Sikhs were Punjabis. And Sikh said, "नहीं भाई, कोई सब पंजाबी अच्छे नहीं, मतलब सब खराब है." He said, "हम भी तो पंजाबी हैं, देते आप अच्छे हैं." Yes. And nearby were the bodies of 2 Pakistani soldiers. They'd been killed the previous evening.
Yeah. So, all right. Did you after 71? All of your family still continue to live in Dhaka as before. and you'd go and visit your village
Yes.
once in a while, like you say, even now you do
Hmm.
that. Let me ask, I'm almost close to the end. Do you think, same question I ask everybody, why you think Hindus are minority in Bangladesh, that their number have come down, whereas the same Bengalis on the other side, where Muslims are minority, their numbers have stabilized. That means not only they have gone up.
Well, as far as Bangladesh is concerned, it is very
Yeah,
much
from
true.
East Pakistan to Bangladesh.
Right.
I'm 47.
Well, from 47 to 1971, I can understand because we were part of a communal state, and I still remember asking my father and my grandfather one simple question: Why did you opt? Why did people in this part of the world opt for Pakistan? And they said that was the wave of the time. They didn't say much, but say from 47 to going back to your question, from 47 to 1971, say it's understandable. Pakistan was a communal state. I still remember the history that we were taught in my school. Say that everything that the Muslims did was good. Everything that the Hindus did was bad. So that kind of history was there. Now in 1971, see we were very happy to have the state of Bangladesh because it was based on four principles: it's democracy, socialism, nationalism, and secularism. So secularism was the main thing. But unfortunately, within 3.5 years, see, as they say, every revolution consumes its heroes. Within 3.5 years, we thought that our state would be different from what used to be in Pakistan, or from the way it used to be in Pakistan. But then, in 1975, we had our coup. You know that very well. The father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and almost his entire family was eliminated. Then, barely 3 months later, the four prominent men who led the Mujibnagar government, without whom the war would not have taken place, they were killed in prison. And then, of course, later on, one by one, we had these General Khalid Musharraf and all the others, all these freedom fighters. They were killed one by one. So what happened in between August and November 1975 was a complete turning away. And I still remember on August 15th, see, in the afternoon of August 15th, Pakistan's Prime Minister Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, he was so pleased with the way things were turning out in Bangladesh, Mujib's murder, etc., that he immediately recognized the Islamic Republic of Bangladesh. It was not an Islamic Republic at all. It never was. It is not even now. But then the trend was, we went towards fundamentalism, say, if not exactly fundamentalism, we went back towards a kind of nationalism that was later called Bangladeshi nationalism, say, and instead of Joy Bangla, the people who took power, they came forth with the idea of Bangladesh Zindabad, which was a kind of going back to Pakistan Zindabad. And this way things went on for 21 long years, see, after Mujib's murder. And then, of course, when Sheikh Hasina and the Awami League came back to power, it's not a question of the Awami League or Sheikh Hasina coming back to power, it's the fact that secularism came back.
Society
yes,
as a whole.
and then again, in 2001, the Awami League lost the election. Then again, we saw another wave of attacks on minorities. The day the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, BNP, won the election on October 1, 2001, so it follows immediately. They went on attacking Awami League supporters and Hindus. Yeah. But again, in 2008, we have hopefully this trend will continue, and hopefully we won't see more Hindus leaving their own country.
One minority, yeah. Almost to the end. Is there anything else that I should have asked? I didn't ask. What do you want to add?
No, well, I am here basically to do some research, and I've always been interested in issues that you're interested in, partition. Yeah. I write on partition.
Something else I forgot to ask. Do you think anybody benefited because of partition of Bengal? Or anybody benefited or lost?
No,
anybody benefited?
See, as one of my colleagues was pointing out to me through an email this morning about Abdul Qadir Khan's statement about Pakistan facing the possibility of another split. So I wrote back to him, telling him that there was hardly any necessity for Pakistan. So personally, it's my feeling that the partition that took place in 1947 was absolutely unnecessary, and it hasn't. India, of course, has developed as a country, as a democracy, well, social development, it has gone ahead. Still, there are many other sectors it has to do well. But as far as Pakistan, the creation of Pakistan was concerned, I think it did severe harm to the Muslims of the subcontinent. Say, it not only, because it failed to give us any democracy, it became, say, first of all, it was a communal state. You can't have a community, a religious community describing itself as a nation, which, something which Mr. Jinnah tried to convince us about.
Yeah, and if that was true, then of course, then it had affected even the non-Muslims. That means
Absolutely.
if
So
it does
we're
one
still,
group, it does other.
we're still going through the consequences of partition.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.